in truth, it's not. And I think to be honest and straightforward with somebody and give them the help they deserve, you need to be a little bit more discretionary.
Absolutely. And as we've come to learn in the years that we've been doing this, Chris and I both have extensive experience in the field, a lot of what happens is either environmental or emotional. And we see this in, quite frankly, almost, I would say, 9 out of 10 cases. We find that people are using things that are either emotional excuses. They, rather than take responsibility for things going wrong in their life, they blame it on the paranormal, or they actually have events in their home, things that are environmentally unsound, bad electrical wiring, various forms of air quality issues that contribute to their belief that they have something in their home. And when a team, one of these what we call the amateur, I refer to them as the shits and giggles teams, go out there and go out there under the premise that everything is paranormal and leave the home without giving resolution to the family, they're doing a great disservice. And that's one of the things that Chris and I are so adamant about, is that people know what they're doing before they go out to people's private homes.
You know, I think I got both sides of the fence on it, guys. I mean, because, you know, doing the work, but first being the client on that side of the fence, I got to see a lot of what is wrong and what is right. I mean, it wasn't all wrong, but, you know, I mean, it definitely gave me a good basis when I started doing the work and I started learning and people started coming to me for help, because it's not that I put an advertisement out and said, come to me for help. People hear that you went through something like they are going through, and they reach out to you. Why? Because they feel like, well, one, they're not going to think I'm crazy. Two, they've been through this and maybe they can help me. So it was kind of funny how, you know, that path kind of directed me into it. But once I was there, I took what I learned from my own experience and I used that for the basis of how I help others. So, you know, when I look at somebody and I tell them, you know, everything's not paranormal, this is this, this is this, and this, I can also say to them, but you know what, I did the same thing. And that makes a difference. That makes a huge difference to people. Because believe it or not, those that are actually living through something, whether it's paranormal or not, but it's still a real experience.
Absolutely.
No matter what that is.
Absolutely.
So if you can take some of that and put the spotlight of reality on it, of what you're actually dealing with and how that, you know, this, you may have this going on here, that might be paranormal, but this isn't here. It really helps to relieve and alleviate some of that angst that you have during the whole event.
Absolutely. You're bringing both empathy and identification, so that, you know, you're not crazy. I went through it too. I know what you're going through.
Right.
That's important.
You know, I think that's the biggest fear. I think that's the biggest fear with people, is that, you know, that's the first question. You tell me I'm not crazy. Well, you're not crazy. I'm not going to tell you immediately it's paranormal either. However, you know, let's work together and find out what's going on with you, and let's solve this so we can get you some peace. That is the goal, to get to a point of peace. And, you know, you said something really interesting to me, you know, Victor, just, you know, a minute ago when you were talking about people taking responsibility for their actions.
Right.
People participate in their haunting. Whether it's paranormal or not, there is a participation. A lot of times behavioral things play a part in it. Absolutely. In order to be able to help somebody, you have to get them to that point of realizing where they're participating in the event, no matter what that event is. And that is so important.
Absolutely.
Well said, well said. All right, Stephen, you know, there were a series of negative life events that left you and your children virtually homeless before you moved into the Union, Missouri house. Could you please share some of the events with us?
Well, I came home. I came home from work one day, and I was married at the time, and the kids were rather young. They were 4, 5, and 6. And my wife was sitting there, and she basically told me she didn't want to be a mother anymore, and she was leaving us.
Wow.
Not only was she leaving us, which was shocking enough, but She had taken the money that was meant for our bills for like the past 6 months, and she had been putting it away in a private bank account. So we were told that not only was she leaving, but we needed to find some place to live. And that's how she left us. She left us homeless, which played into things later on when you move into a place and things start happening, in that question of you're more accepting of everything because you already know what homeless is and you don't want to go back there. So it was very important, to understand what happened to us earlier in that sense and what put us off. And it really was the stepping off point. If I look back at it now, hindsight's 20/20. If I look back at it now, that was the stepping off point of going down that road that took us to some very dark places.
In the introduction to your newest book, Blessed Are the Wicked, the terrifying sequel to The Uninvited, you use the analogy of this vision you have as a child of balloons, beautiful balloons, I think you said orange balloons, flying through the air and then getting to a point and hitting the edge of a sharpened brick and then busting. And you relate that to the loss of your sister, who I from what I took from reading,
right,
was very, very, you were very close with. What other events?
Closest person to me in the world, actually.
Yeah. What other events in your early life? Because this seems to be have been a recurring pattern in your early life.
It was my early life was actually pretty good. I was kind of like the golden boy. Anything I could touch seemed to turn to gold. It was after the marriage that things started going bad, and after her death. But but from that moment on, the analogy was, you have all of these balloons in the air, and sooner or later they come down, and when they come down, there's the rocks there to smash them. That's what life felt like for me at that point. It felt like everything was blowing up around me, everything that you can imagine. So. But as far as life as a kid, I think it was pretty good. I lived in a haunted house when I was younger, but I didn't know that till after the haunting. It was kind of funny. John Baptist, anybody that knows the case knows that, Johnny worked with me quite close on it. He always said to me, he goes, going through this kind of event, this extreme event, you had to have been touched by spirit at a very young age. Mm-hmm. And I kept looking at him and going, no, I wasn't. And he kept going, yeah, you were. And funny is my parents at one point said to me, and this was after we had moved out of the house, and, this was like years later, they said, when you were a kid, we lived in a house, and we would hear, people walking up and down stairs, and we would go into your room, your nursery, and find you tucked in your bed at night. Something would go in and like a sin, which is, and my response was, well, why didn't you tell me this? But, the thing is it's a generational thing. And, now we'll talk about these things. But back then, and I got to hand it to them because I understand societal norm and all of that, they felt that it was something that you didn't talk about. You never felt the need to discuss it. They just lived with it. So,
I got to say, Stephen, I don't know how old you are. I'm 46. And when I was a kid, that's when Spirit first came to me, and I come from a very psychic family, but we really didn't talk about like hauntings and stuff like that. And when the haunting was happening in my home, my parents didn't want to talk about it because it would scare the hell out of my brother and my two sisters. So they didn't speak about it back then. But I think mainly because of all the ghost shows, which I think are pretty much ridiculous, but most of them, I think because of these shows now, and for radio shows like Second Sight and all the other radio shows out there, it makes it a lot easier for people to talk about it because, they say that they're not the only ones going through these crazy things that, in their mind, what they think is crazy. It happens, and there are spirit, and they, all these things, and you can talk about it now because of shows like this. So there's a big difference between, 20, 30, and 40 years ago and today when it comes to talking about this stuff.
No, absolutely, and I understand that, and I get that now. One of my first memories was in that house. I was playing, and I almost put this in the book, Victor, by the way. The orange balloon thing kind of replaced this, but I was playing with a truck, and the Christmas tree came down on me, and I got in trouble for turning that Christmas tree over, and it wasn't me. Looking back at it now, and of course, after discussing it and stuff, it became very clear that it was probably one of my first paranormal events, and I did not know it. It took years to get to that point to go back to it. However, when you're writing a book, the introduction of a book, but that would have taken a long time to explain, I'm afraid.
Well, having grown up in the 50s, when my first experiences were taking place, in those days, you absolutely didn't talk about them because basically you'd end up in a psychiatric hospital or something.
Really?
People were not amenable at all to hearing these things.
What do there's that saying, the psychiatric hospitals are filled with people that are either are talking to God or the devil or think they are God or the devil.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. So, Stephen, after the situation took place with your ex-wife, how did you find the Union House, or did the house find you?
Well, I kind of think it picked me in some ways. I mean, we were living in an apartment at that time, and I had been living in an apartment with the kids for a period of time, and it was a great situation. It was a huge apartment, as a matter of fact. However, when they would want to go out and play, we had a balcony, and the balcony overlooked the parking lot, and I wasn't the kind of parent that sent their kids out into the street and play. So it became very apparent as they started growing that there was this need to find what, in my younger son, as a matter of fact, even stated it this way, to find more of a normal family life. I guess was the desire, and part of that desire was put onto finding a house. So we went out looking for this house. And the thing I could tell you, Victor, when I saw the house for the first time, is it reminded me of my grandmother's house as a kid. And that was, so think about this. You're out looking for the perfect family life for your children, to give them everything they want, to give them everything that the family can offer, but you got this missing piece. So you come across this house that looks like what you remember your grandmother's house, and instantly that's an attraction. That drew me in pretty quick, actually. Thinking back on it, I think that was one of the top selling points for it, for myself, was, look at this. This is something familiar. This is something good. And boy, was I wrong.
Our guest tonight is the amazing Stephen LaChance. He's the author of the new book, Blessed Are the Wicked. Stephen, please tell our listeners where they can get your book and find out more about you and what you do.
Well, the books are available at any major bookstore in the United States, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Amazon, Kindle, Nook. They're available in Canada. They're, the Uninvited in French even. I mean, they're around the world. So, I mean, they're very easy to get a hold of if you want to. Even libraries, by the way. I support a lot of libraries. So, so that's easy to find. If you want to find out more information on the different films and that sort of thing, a haunting and that, you can go to my website, which is StephenALaChance.com. That's Stephen with my middle initial, LaChance, or LaChance, like you said, .com.
And as we advocate and say every week, we recommend that you support your local bookstores in your communities because they're an integral part of the economy of your local community. So go down to your local bookstore. Say, I want a copy of Stephen LaChance's Blessed Are the Wicked. And if they don't have it in stock, tell them to get it for you because you want to support them and support your community. And on that note, I just want to say you're listening to Second Sight Radio, psychic medium Chris George, me, Victor the Voice Furman, our guest Stephen LaChance, and we are on the DTM Wicked Radio Network and at TeslaWolfMedia.com.
Well, Stephen, I just want to add, when we don't like a book, we we really don't even mention it. When we like a book, we really talk it up. And I have to say, Victor sent me a copy of your book. I just didn't get it yet. I don't know. You got to put a trace on it. But before the show, Victor was telling me, because I'm in the process of writing a book myself, and he said, Chris, before you really continue writing your book, you really need to read Stephen's book. And listen, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I don't need to do that. This is exactly what Victor told me. He said, read his book because it was a book that I couldn't put down. So that's a big endorsement right there from the voice. And I'm looking forward to getting the book and reading. I feel bad that I didn't get to read it yet. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there to you to let you know what
we need to get you a copy of The Uninvited too, Victor, if you haven't read that one yet.
Absolutely. We're going to purchase a copy of The Uninvited. I'm going to support you, and we're going to buy a copy of The Uninvited.
Well, we should have him back on to talk about that one, too.
Absolutely. We can review both books the next time. Absolutely.
All right. So, guys, you had an uneasy sense about the house before you moved in. Could you please describe that?
Yeah, when we were the first time I noticed something, I guess, not right, was almost immediately we were unpacking the moving truck. As we were unpacking the moving truck, a car drove by, and it was people rolled down the window and they slowed down. And it wasn't, they said this, they didn't say it's happy or anything like that. They said, we hope you get along well here. Kind of serious. Rolled up the window and drove away. And my daughter looked at me at that moment. I remember looking at her, and the comment that I made to her, even though it seemed strange to me, she had. So I looked at her and go, nice neighbors. But looking, after going through what we went through and everything, I realized they were trying to give us a warning at that point.
It's interesting.
Unbelievable. So you move in. How old were your children at the time that you moved in?
By the time we got there, they were 10, 11, and 12. So we had been living in the apartment for a little bit. We lived in a house too for a small period of time as well.
What was your first real encounter with the paranormal after you moved into the house?
The moment I knew it was paranormal was after. Well, we give you a little history. As we were going, we noticed people were walking in front of the house. We were coming home finding all the lights on at night. All the lights on in the house, even the closet lights. And I thought somebody was coming in during the day. And I actually called the landlord, and they told me, no, we had to give you notice and everything. Because the house was a rental, by the way. So the one thing that I remember, the kids, my youngest son, every time he was out of arm's reach, I would find him screaming and scared. Saying something was chasing him and this. And my daughter was going through it, and my other son. And I was a corporate trainer, and I would go out in town. And up at that point, at one point, I had all three kids in the bed at night going, and I'm laying there going, what is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And my first thought was, well, maybe we put too much on this move, maybe it was too much for them. They're not getting out of it what they thought they would get out of. They were looking for some kind of normalcy, but now that we're here, they see that life is pretty much the same. It's just in a different location. Maybe it's the divorce coming to haunt it. All of that other stuff, I was dealing with. But I was a corporate trainer, so I would go out of town for a week or 2 weeks. I'd go stay at my mom and dad's when I would do that. And I was getting ready for a trip, and before I would do that, the night before, it was quality time. If you can't spend quantity, you spend quality. So we would turn, and I could look up into the family room, and I could see into the kitchen doorway. And I looked up into the kitchen doorway, and there was a black smoky figure of a man standing there.
Oh, interesting.
And I saw him, and I looked down, and I thought, well, you know what? The kids are getting to me. Maybe I'm just seeing this, and I'm going to look up. This thing's going to be gone. And then when I looked back up, it was still there, and then it moved into the family room, and then it dissipated away, and it went away. And at that point, here goes my belief system that we talked about earlier, came crashing down, and I needed to get out of there at that point. And it's funny because my daughter is older now; she's like 26, and we were just talking about it a couple months ago, and she said, I knew something was wrong, Dad, when I saw your keys in your right hand and your hand was shaking. You know?
Wow.
And I thought to myself at that moment, I said, you know, the actual thought went through my mind. I did not want to be like the people in movies that go running, screaming in the middle of the night. So I got them up. You know, you guys got to know me. It's like, okay, let's save some face here and do this in the right way. So I got them up and said, well, you know, we're going to go get a soda and go to Grandma's house. This is like at 9 o'clock at night, so they were really confused anyway. So we get up, and it was an old house, and you had to put the key in the door to lock it. And as I put the key into the door, and after I closed it, and you started to lock it, was the first time I heard the house scream, and the kids heard it. Dogs in the neighborhood heard it. It was a male scream. You know, it was coming from inside the house. Can you imagine something screaming that loud coming from inside your house? And it sounded like somebody being tortured. And the kids heard it. I heard it. We were on the run at that point.
Well, before you go on, Stephen, so you hear this scream. Now, obviously, it had to scare the hell out of you. It obviously scared the hell out of the kids. What was going on with the kids at that point? Were they like screaming and yelling, hugging? What was going on with the kids?
My daughter grabbed a hold of me. The two boys went running to them. to go.
Right.
I ran to the car to get out, you know, and actually, you know, and I just grabbed her and was like, come on, let's go, you know, and then, you know, the thing is later, if I'll come up some years, I had talked to the gentleman that lived across the street, and this was years later. As a matter of fact, he had moved into a haunted house someplace else and came to me for help. Isn't that strange? And I was really kind of defiant with him at first because I was like, you know, did you ever hear this thing scream? Did you ever see this thing standing in the windows? Did you know? And he said, you know, I knew what you were going to go through. And he goes, and I knew you were not going to be there for long. He goes, you have to forgive me. You have to understand that I averted my gaze from the house. I didn't ever look at it. And if I heard something, I ignored it because I had to live here, and I knew I was going to be here longer than you. You know, so there you go.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
What was that? I mean, obviously you can't duplicate it. What was that screaming sound like?
If I heard it again, I would. You know, it haunts you. I mean, it's something that I should never forget. It sounded torturous. I mean, somebody that it was very, very. There was a lot of pain to it. Okay, is the best way I could describe it to you.
Wow.
You know, and it was. Imagine somebody. I imagine being stabbed or something like that is what it sounded like.
Stephen, were you ever able to record it?
Later on, there were some recordings done. They never got the male scream. However, later on, the house would scream. There would be a female scream, and sometimes you would hear a child screaming. But I think they caught the female scream at one time, but the male scream was never caught.
That's amazing to me. You know, Victor and I have been on many investigations, as I'm sure you have as well, obviously. You know, I've never heard a scream in a home or wherever we've been. I mean, I've heard things psychically, but never where everybody heard it. You know, maybe a foot stab or a knock, stuff like that. But never a scream. That would be pretty freaking awesome to witness, don't you think?
I don't know if awesome is the word. I don't think Stephen thought it was awesome at the time.
No, I didn't think it was awesome. You know, my dad was with me one night when the child screamed. And you have to know my father to know what a kid person he is. It was the most disturbing thing that could ever happen to him, really. I mean, you know, so yeah, I mean, it sticks with you, and it's something that doesn't go away.
Now, in addition to the screams and seeing this, you described it as a black apparition.
It's a black apparition, yes.
In addition to the screams and seeing the black apparition, did you feel anything? Did you have any type of sensation?
Yeah, we did. We as a matter of fact, my dad's a contractor. I had him come over because it seemed like it would get cold and it would get hot. I mean, we were having cold and hot spots in there. I can give you the terminology now. Back then, I didn't know what it was. I thought, there's something wrong with the air conditioner, and there's something wrong with the electricity. I thought because you would get that. And the best way I can describe it is. It was inner tickle almost, and it would work its way out. And as it worked its way out, the hairs would stand out, and you would get this for no reason. I mean, you would just be sitting there. So I went to him and I said, "Listen," I said, "we got some stuff going on here." And I said, "I think we got number one, an electrical problem. Two, there's something wrong with this air conditioner." Because we're in May at that point. And he came and looked at it, and he said, there's nothing wrong here. The only thing that he could find electrical-wise was the fuse box in the basement, the breakers. They did not have a cover on it. He goes, but that wouldn't be doing anything like that. He goes, it's a good idea to have a cover on it, but he goes, that wouldn't be doing it for you. And we went upstairs, and we were sitting on the couch, and at one point I looked over and we were just talking, catching up and stuff, and I look over at him and he's looking at the hairs on his arms, and I looked at his eyes and there's tears coming down his face, and I looked at him and I said, "What?" And he goes, "This is what you're feeling." And I looked at him and said, "Yeah, this is how we react when we feel it, yeah."
So actually what we're talking about is you're actually saying that in addition to the cold spots, in addition to hearing the screaming, seeing the apparition, you felt a tingling sensation, almost like a static electricity with this.
Yeah, it was almost, an inward static. It would start on the inside and work its way out, yeah.
Okay. So now,
it's a very strange feeling. I've never quite felt that exactly the same since, by the way.
So just getting back, we talked a little bit before about being a skeptic prior to the experience, and you really sort of said you weren't a skeptic. You really had no knowledge whatsoever, or no take on this whatsoever. Did this turn you into an instant believer, I guess is the word I'm looking for?
I mean, once it started screaming, I had to deal with something at that point. But the thing is the homeless thing and stuff weighed on it. The male ego kind of came out too, which is, you're not going to chase me from my home. The logical side, I was Mr. Logical. You want to talk about somebody that was denying themselves with daily rationalization. I was the king of rationalization at that point. It was a one-time thing. It's not going to happen again. We'll get somebody to come in to help us. I don't know who, maybe the church. The only thing that at that point that I had ever seen before is and I think the Amityville was probably the extent. That's how I knew to go to the Warrens and try the Warrens at that point. So
that's interesting. So I'm curious. What effect did all of this have on the children?
It was devastating. It was devastating, especially because later on, after the last event that happened was it locked them in a bedroom. And it would not let me into the bedroom to get to them. I mean, you guys ever meet me? I'm 6'7". I'm a football player, kind of build guy. I'm a big guy. And I went to that night when I tried to open the door, and the house was actually, there was a vibration, a shaking going on, and it was screaming again. And that the door, they were all three in the bedroom, and my daughter, when it started, she said, "Dad, I'm in here, what's going on?" Because there were some noises going on. And I was telling them, I thought they were up playing around. I was telling them to stop. I was on the phone with my mother. And when she said that, the bedroom doors, there was two of them, they slammed shut. And I ran to the closest one to me, and I tried to open it to go in. And I could hear her screaming on the other side of the door. I could hear the man screaming. Now, if you talk to her, she talks about she heard multiple screams on the other side of that door. I heard a man scream. I tried to open the door wouldn't open. I started throwing my body against the door, and when it was all said and done, after, I did get in finally, but my whole body was bruised on the side that I was throwing my body against the door. I got in the room. The thing is, and you can make your judgments on this, I don't care. I'll tell you what it is. It is what it is, I said, God help me at one point, and that's when the door gave way. And my boys were waking up. I looked at them and I said, go out the front door. I sent them out the nearest door. When I got to my daughter, she was in shock. I grabbed her. I turned. There was a door behind me that remained closed. That door slammed open behind me, and I never turned around to see what it was. I got the hell out at that point.
Wow.
So that kind of thing with kids, especially, you got to think of it this way. You have kids that were deserted by their mother. It's hard to talk about, sure, but that kind of splinters a child and puts them into pieces. So we piece them. I get them pieced back together, and they're going good. And then this haunting comes, which what does that do? It takes away all their security. So we were back at square one, trying to get them to a point where they felt secure. Especially my middle son had the most problem with the security thing. That he was never quite safe. It took a while to get him through that. It took a little bit of counseling.
I have a couple of follow-up questions on that. Number one, you had said that you heard the male voice screaming, but your daughter said she heard multiple voices screaming. Any idea why that happened?
I have no idea. I always say, from her point of view, what was happening on her side of the door was very different from what was happening on mine. And, I heard the man scream. That's the only scream I heard, but she heard multiple. And I have no reason or inclination of why that was. I just know that's, her take on it.
And the other follow-up question to this is the fact that...
I wonder if she heard me screaming, though.
Maybe.
There was one point, I heard this sound and realized it was me. So
maybe leaving you vulnerable, leaving your children vulnerable. Do you think that vulnerability contributed to what was taking place?
Yeah, I do. I think what I usually talk about, what I think got me to the point where it got me to was, because I was so angry. And there's a lot of anger, within myself that I think got me in trouble. Even if you would talk, now, realize that, the church at one point, the Catholic Church, put out a 156-page report on it.
Right, we're going to touch on that in a little bit. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but they talk in that report a little bit. They think that she might have even been the catalyst that caused a lot of this as well.
Wow.
Interesting. All right. Well, Stephen, you had many horrifying, terrifying experiences after this. Could you please share some of those with us?
Well, the thing is after we left the house, leaving the house was not easy. I remember trying to get everything packed up and it pounding on the floor upstairs. So my dad always describes it as, he always says it sounded like elephants running across the floor. And I went up to the stairway and I started screaming at it. I said something to the fact of, if you don't let me do what I need to do here and get our thing, I'll find a way to make you burn in hell forever. And it stopped. It stopped at that point. And after we moved, though, the nightmare started. I would have the same nightmare 3 to 4 times a week. They would find me standing in the middle of the room in the night in catatonic state almost. There was times that they would tackle me trying to run out the front door. This kind of stuff started, and it just continued from there. And then in 2004, so I'm going through all of this stuff. It's definitely still with us. There's things going on. And a lady that was living in the house at that point came to me, and she said they were going through it, and maybe we could help each other. And so that's why I made probably the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life, which was going to investigate my own haunting and trying to find help. We made some terrible, terrible mistakes. And I think that's important to say because it's one thing to make a mistake in life. It's another thing not to own up to them. We didn't know what we were doing, and we probably shouldn't have been doing what we were doing. But we went to look for help, and that help was very hard to find, and it took us down a very dark road. There were definite things. I remember one night I was in a bedroom. I walked upstairs to the bedroom, which was one of the kids' bedrooms, and there was a black This was a mess. This wasn't in any form that I could ever tell you. As a matter of fact, one of the priests yelled at me for this, by the way, because I stood toe to toe to it, and it was big. It towered over my head, actually over the top of me. And I can remember standing there, and I was thinking to myself, "I'm not going to move. I'm standing my ground here." And after it went away, I got weak in the knees and that sort of thing. But they said that I probably took a big chance there.
Well, Stephen,
I don't know what else to do. I don't know what are you going to do, Ron. You know.
Well, I have two follow-ups to what you're saying. First,
yeah.
I don't think it was wrong that you stood up to it. Okay. In my experience, you know, I do exorcisms, and if you show that you're scared, you're defeated. There's no way you can.
Well, that was my point. If you show fear, if you show this thing fear, it's going to use it against you.
Absolutely, they feed on it. Mm-hmm. You know, this is what I tell people all the time. You know, there are people that call me and say, I'm being pinned down by spirit in the bed. What do I do? And I tell them, don't fight, because they're going to recycle that energy against you and be able to hold you longer. You know, I'm a big believer in standing up to it, not being disrespectful, not being, crazy, but just standing your ground respectfully. Standing your ground. That's number one.
Standing your ground.
You have to. You have to, because the second you take a step back, they gain the step, and it's so hard to get that step back. You know,
I agree absolutely with you, but then I got range for that. By the way,
I believe
you could have taken you over right then. What were you doing? You know, it's like, where was I supposed to go? What was I supposed to do?
Well,
at that point.
Listen, I agree with you 100%. I think you did the absolute right thing. So, the other thing I want to know is, what was the total amount of time you stayed in that home?
We were there we weren't there for very long. It was 3 months is the total time that he was in my possession. 13 days is what it took to get us out. 13 days.
Wow.
And then it affected us. Now, here's the thing. It affected us for 10 years after.
Amazing. Yeah,
so, Stephen, was what you were dealing with demonic? And if so, how did you come to that conclusion?
Well, the church would tell you that. I think, in my mind, I look at it as it was some form of, you could say, the evil or whatever. The one thing that I found, myself, and this is, I'll talk for myself, but I'll also tell you there's other people like me that have lived through these things. We're not too caught up in the labels. We just know that this thing happened to us and what it was and how it reacted. Now, do I think it was demonic? Well, I know it strengthened my faith, so therefore I guess, yeah, I would have to say, that I think it was evil in that sort of sense. How can you come out with being stronger spiritually and not look at it that way? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Victor and I have pretty strong beliefs about the whole everything being demonic thing. Everybody says, "Oh, it's demonic. Everything is demonic," and that's just not the case.
Right.
But
I have very strong beliefs about that too. That's why I'm just, I have to look at it from a spiritual sense of myself and how I got through it. And so I would say probably. So is the label, you don't want, I hear, Victor, you'll love this. When I was reading the report from the church when it came out, and it was actually 2012 when they put it out, it was the scariest document ever. I couldn't have read anything there. I'm sitting in the sun reading it because I'm not reading it inside by myself. And my phone rings and I pick up the phone and it's my mother. And I said, Mom, I'm reading this. I mean, they got a name for this thing. They got, and she said, stop. And I said, what? She said, stop. She goes, remember where that's coming from. That's coming from, that's one point of view. She goes, do not take this point of view and run with it. She goes, it is one point of view. Who's
smart lady?
Exactly what. Very smart lady.
Smart lady. Victor, you want to touch any more on the demonic stuff or no?
No, I think we can. I think we can go on from there.
All right. So
sometimes I use the word demon because I just don't have any other word for it. What do you call it?
Well, Stephen, let me just say something real quick before we move on. It's labeling, okay? First of all,
I agree.
Not everything is demonic. I've dealt with spirits that were so bad, so evil. They weren't demonic, but you know what? To somebody it might be, because when you're dealing with something so evil, if you want to call it demonic, go ahead. I don't have a problem with that, But the truth is, not everything is demonic.
Absolutely. I think there's too much of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. The concept of demon, to me, implies, and I don't use the Judeo-Christian sense of the word demon. It just, to me, implies something that was never in a human form. In essence, you can have people who are bad in life, and when they transition, their spirit maintains the evil or the bad nature until they rectify it after death. But they were humans, and the spirit that they're presenting is a human spirit. What I've been in touch with people who have studied the demonic for a long time. And what they say the demonic was, it was an energy form that existed on the earth actually before humankind existed on earth, was never human, and is very, very intense and negatively intended energy. And so I guess that's where the Judeo-Christian Islamic definition of the demon or the jinn came from these beings. But what happens, especially because of modern media and a lot of stuff that's been around, shows like Paranormal State and the like, everything that they dealt with was a demon. There was a piano that they bought, a family bought at an auction, and they determined that the piano had a demon in it. So they had to take the piano out into the front yard, smash it with an axe, and burn it. Nonsense. This is the type of thing that drives Chris and I crazy. Because what happens is people get on this bandwagon that everything's a demon. And so you have these junior paranormal teams that what I refer to as the shits and giggles teams go out there and they say, you have a demon in your house. And they leave, and these people are left believing that they have a demon in their home. It's ridiculous.
You see it all the time. And I'm actually glad you guys went down this road, because nobody ever wants to talk about this. Right. And it's labeling. What do you call it? I don't know what you call it. What was it? Well, I know history around the property, and that could have led into it, definitely. And it could have been one character that played into that. But, what was it? It doesn't matter, actually, what it was to that point. The fact of the matter is that we spent 10 years with it, and it was not good. And, so call it demon, call it evil, call it the tooth fairy, call it whatever. That will never take that away from what it was. And I think, the demon word can be used in a bad way and cause a lot of problems.
I was just going to say, if you're dealing with a human entity that was evil in life and now maintains evil after transition, and you give it the attribution demon, you're empowering it. And you're turning it into something that really is not.
You're giving it more power.
This is why I keep Victor around, because he knows his shit. But I have a question for you, Stephen. You've been doing this a long time. You've been around a lot of different energies, going into homes, dealing with different angry spirits and whatnot. I'm curious. This is coming to the end of the hour. I just wanted to finish up with this. I want to know what the energy was surrounding this spirit that we're talking about, as opposed to other spirits in other homes that you've been to. Was it the same, or was it different? And another thing I'd like to know is, speaking about the spirit that you encountered in this home, could you tell me a little bit about the smell, if there was a smell, or in what type of smell? Okay, so talk about that for a minute.
It wasn't, how people always talk about, well, I smelled, it was the smell of sulfur. No, this wasn't that at all.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, it was more of think of like decaying flesh and soured milk. and all kinds of horrible things mixed together, and that's pretty much where you get the smell. It was not sulfuric at all. I mean, I always say that always puts the radar up for me when I'm working cases when somebody goes, I smell sulfur. Because
right.
I never come across it.
Well, for me, when I feel that 3 of the cases that I've worked on with demonic, okay, and the reason being was it was a different energy as opposed to just really bad spirit. Really, it was a different energy. Number 1, and number 2, the smell. Like you said, it absolutely was not sulfur. You know, so when people tell me they smell sulfur, I immediately think that they're making it up, or they think they smell it or whatever. I don't know. But to me, the smell, it was always like
Broccoli Rob.
You know what?
What did you?
I ate broccoli Rob yesterday, Victor.
Because if you
I would get Rob with you.
I'm telling you right now, I know you can do sulfur.
No, to me, Stephen, it smelled like wet animal, like wet dog, or it was not sulfur, but it was putrid almost. But
it's worse. It's worse than a sulfur smell. And the thing too, it travels too. It moves.
Yeah.
It's there and then it's gone. It's not something that I think people think you're with this bad smell all the time. No, it actually is a moving thing.
I have to say, I have to say, I judge our guests all the time. To their face and privately with Victor. And I have to tell you, the things that you're saying are so on point, and the people listening to the show tonight, listen to the things that this man is saying. He is absolutely on point when he's talking about, the way, the smell, everything he's saying is on point. If you believe in what Victor and I say and do, believe in what this man is saying, you're on the money, buddy. Victor, you want to wrap it up?
And our amazing guest, this first hour has gone so fast, is Mr. Stephen LaChance, author of the book, Blessed Are the Wicked, the terrifying sequel to his first book, The Uninvited. He's psychic medium Chris George. I'm Victor the Voice Furman. This is Second Sight Radio on the DTM Wicked Radio Network and Tesla Wolf Media on the video side. We will be back in the second hour. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
paranormal,
ghosts,
spirits,
demons,
reincarnation,
past lives,
the afterlife,
divination,
exorcisms,
witchcraft.
the unseen.
He's psychic medium Chris George.
And he's Victor the Voice Fireman.
We are Second Sight Radio.
Paranormal,
ghosts,
spirits,
demons,
reincarnation,
past lives,
the afterlife,
divination,
exorcisms,
witchcraft.
the unseen.
He's psychic medium Chris George.
And he's Victor the Voice Fireman.
We are Second Sight Radio.
First hour was absolutely outstanding, and for those of you who've been listening, you know it's been a great show so far. And I just want to once again thank our guests for being here tonight. Stephen, you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. So, first thing I want to do, Victor, before we do a quick Church of Second Sight is, we've been talking about doing a couple pay-per-views this year. With DTM and with Tesla Wolf Media and whatnot. And my idea is, I've been wanting to do an investigation of the Shanley Hotel again. It's one of the best places to go because we could sleep over and, it's haunted and always get great evidence there. And I want to put it out there to our listeners. It's going to be an open invitation, whatever it is. I think it's $75 to spend the night there. You can look it up on ShanleyHotel.com. It'll tell you exactly how much it is. I'm pretty sure it's $75 a person. But it's going to be an overnight investigation.
Chris, wait for the warm weather. They don't have any heat in that building.
I know. I'm thinking April. I'm thinking April would be a decent time to go. April, May. I think more April. I mean, it's nice enough, and they have heaters, and we'll be fine. But the place is awesome, and the owner there is a really cool guy, and I want to do this. And I think we need to open it up to our listeners, let them come and see how Second Sight Paranormal investigates, let them be part of the investigation with us, teach them, and I think would make a great show.
And they can also see how we roll around the floor writhing when we do investigations, right?
That depends on if I have some kind of spirit taking me over.
There you go.
So I'm just putting it out there, people. Anybody who's interested in being part of this investigation, I'm guessing it's going to be in April. That's when I'd like to do it. Get in contact with us, with myself, with Victor. Just go on Second Sight group page, and there's many ways to get in contact with us. You all know how to do it, and let me know, because I think we can bring about 30 people there. Second Sight, between myself, Victor, and Second Sight, and a couple of people that always go, we probably have about, I would say, 15 already. So I would guess we could take 15 other people with us on this investigation. It'll be a lot of fun. You get to hang out with us. You get to meet Victor and myself, and
Tommy G says you'll wear your Second Sight Speedo during the investigation.
Yes, I will, and I fill that Speedo out well. Anyway, Victor, why don't we do the Church of Second Sight? And my Church of Second Sight is, I'm not going to bitch about anything. What I'm going to do is actually, I want to say that, I met a lot of nice people this year. A lot of times I'll do the Church of Second Sight and I'll rag on somebody who pissed me off or whatever, but I got to say, the good this year has far outweighed the bad for me. And I'm really happy to say that, because, as you know, I've been through some crazy things with exes and whatnot, and really made my life miserable for a long time. But this year, it's like really great people have come into my life. We had some really great guests come into our lives and become friends with us. Friends that we've made on Facebook have become even closer friends to us. You know, we've gone out with some of them. You've gone out with a few. I've gone out with a few. And they've come to my home. I just want to say that, and I want to thank you. You know, there's so many, you know, you read on Facebook, especially all the time, everybody's miserable and who pissed this person off, especially in the paranormal community. I mean, that runs rampant. But you know what? It's not all bad. And this year has, I got to say, it's been a good year for me. I've met a lot of great people, and I'm just happy that, I'm happy about that. I'm glad you're in my life, Victor. You know, you've made my life better. You've made the show better. And, you know, I'm just very thankful. I'm very happy with the way this past year has gone, and I'm hopeful that this year coming will be a lot more of the same. You want to add anything to that, Vic?
Just that I'm sorry I couldn't get to your New Year's Eve celebration because I was on doctor's orders not to participate that week, to sort of stay home and relax. And I missed you guys, and I just want to say that for those of you who know, one of the members of Second Sight, a gentleman by the name of Anthony Loria, he and his beautiful Cindy were there that night. And they were sort of engaging in, you know, at Chris's New Year's Eve party, there's always a lot of moonshine to be imbibed. And quite frankly, they were imbibing moonshine, and at one point, Chris and Big Anthony, now Anthony Loria, Anthony's what, about 6'4"?
No, he's maybe 6, maybe about 6'2".
6'4", probably around 350, 400 pounds?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he turned around, grabbed Chris, and gave him a smackaroonie on the lips.
Okay.
Someone took a picture of that and posted it on Facebook. And I created a little bit of a video calling The Bromance of Chris and Anthony Forever. and I got to tell you, it was one of the
hot gallons of moonshine and about 200 Jello shots and who knows how many shots of Jack Daniel's honey. But you definitely missed. And you know what? There's always next year, my friend.
There's always next year.
I got to say this. You know, it was a wild night, and you know, I'm a big Seinfeld fan, and I decided that we were going to celebrate Festivus. The Festivus is it's a made-up holiday where you air your grievances and you decorate a pole and all that stuff. If you ever watch Seinfeld, know what I'm talking about. Well, we decided that we're going to do Festivus for the 4th of July, because me and my brother always have this huge party for the 4th of July, and I invited over Facebook. My brother looked at me and said, "Did you just give out my address to all of Facebook?" I said, hey, it was the moonshine talking. I don't know. But anyway, 4th of July, my house, people. If you want to come, get in contact with me. You guys are all invited.
That means the 900,000+ listeners out there tonight.
Yeah.
We're going to come to Staten Island on July 4th, and we're going to raise the roof at Chris and his brother's house over there. So we're going to have a lot of fun. Chris, you know, whenever I do a Church of Second Sight or do an add-on Church of Second Sight, mine are usually serious. And mine tonight is serious. And I just want to say that my thoughts and prayers go out to the families and the loved ones of those who lost their lives in the mindless, senseless slaughter that took place in Paris yesterday. Those thoughts and prayers also include those who know the value of a free and available press. A lot of folks don't know that I spent a part of my life as both a print and broadcast journalist, and I still do contribute to certain magazines and periodicals. So this event, this tragedy yesterday, really hit home with me. I took it to heart. There was a man by the name of Francois-Marie Arouet. He was better known as the French writer and philosopher Voltaire. And in the mid-1700s, he said the following: "I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend with my life your right to say it." I'm going to read that one more time. "I may not agree with what you say, but I will defend with my life your right to say it." Freedom of the press is one of the most important rights that a democratic government can give to its citizenry. In its highest form, freedom of the press keeps government, industry, institutions, and yes, even religion, honest. Along with the freedom of the press comes the freedom not to read anything that you find offensive or that you disagree with. And quite frankly, if you don't like something and you don't read it, if enough people don't like something and don't read or watch a television program or partake in some form of information, that will eventually go away because most of magazines and newspapers and television, radio stations and cable stations depend on viewership and readership and listenership for their livelihood. So if you don't like it, use the power of your veto by saying, I'm not going to watch or listen. That's the way things are done in a democracy. We live in a democracy, in a secular environment where people from many faiths and many cultures and many backgrounds live together, for the most part, in peace and harmony and taking care of one another. What happened in Paris is something that just is so unfathomable to me. You know, if you don't like something, if you're offended by something, just turn away or put something else out in response to it. But violence, murder, terrorism is never the answer to any of the things that we don't like or don't agree with in life. May the world's outrage serve as a message to those who do not appreciate the value of free and uncensored information in a democratic society. And I join millions and millions and millions of people who do appreciate this around the world by saying, Je suis Charlie. I am Charlie. I am Charlie. I am one with the spirit of the freedom of the press. And that's my Church of Second Sight.
Well said, my friend. Well said.
Thank you. Well said.
All right. Why don't you take the first question back from Greg, Victor?
Well, let me reintroduce our guest, Stephen LaChance, author of the book Blessed Are the Wicked. Stephen, we were talking about the Union Screaming House where you lived and where all of this horrible activity took place. What role did your landlord play in all of this?
Well, the thing is the landlord was participating in some way. I mean, it became quite clear during the events and the innuendos that were made at different times of, I never heard that this place was haunted, or the fact that, I heard it was haunted, or, that sort of thing. And then later on, we actually met with a family member of the original owner of the land who was a Civil War captain, and his family came forward with pictures and such, and they talked in depth about some involvement into some cult activity, which the landlord was probably participating in. So, I mean, we're definitely involved in the way that it is. And what's funny about, the very last email that I received from the landlord was, it was after I had gotten Helen out of the house and things went very, very bad. I was trying to work with the landlord at that point because the church at that point wanted to come in, and they said, well, we'll go in and do an exorcism of the property and the land and such. And we actually had somebody from the Archdiocese that was interested in doing this. And in fact, actually the Vatican, one of the assistant exorcists to the Vatican, was interested in it as well. And so I was trying to deal with that, and I was like, well, don't run it out to a family at this point. Let's go ahead and do this. Well, in the process of trying to put that together, I get this final email from the landlord that said, I can hear the little children running around the upstairs breezeway. I can hear their little, in quotations in italics, their little angel screams. I hope their guardian angel's watching over them tonight.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's ugly. But there you go.
All right. Well, when you left the house, did you leave the paranormal behind?
Well, when I left the house, did I leave the paranormal? The activity followed with us for quite a while. Up until 2011. I mean, I had things going on. It was interesting because, and I actually talk about this in the book, Lorraine Warren, and I held her feet to the fire on this for a while because it disturbed me that when she said it, and her response was, "This is far from over." And I did not understand what she was saying, and now I do. I mean, after doing this type of work in the serious cases, it seemed that it takes years sometimes to get this monkey off your back.
Sure.
And I remember specifically being at a hospital that I was asked to go to speak to, and they never investigated these places, when I went to them. I was always kind of, standoffish. And this is why I definitely went that way at this place, and something turned me against the wall in the psychiatric ward of the hospital, and it became very clear. And I remember her words very distinctly now, and I owe her an apology for being mad at her for a period of time because she was right. It was far from over. It takes a while to get over it. And as a matter of fact, Rick and I have heart problems too. I know you know that because you read the book. And I had went through open heart surgery. So a week before my open heart surgery, we would walk into our kitchen and find all of the cabinet doors and drawers open, and we would find butcher knives lined up in the floor. And I thought I was not going to survive it, to be honest with you. I thought it was trying to tell me this is it. And so I did die on the operating table for a period of time. However, you can take whatever you want out of it. I left it behind at that point. Whatever attachment it had onto me, the moment of death caused it to go away. So, so I'm always, I always kind of, with fellow investigators out there, I always try to say to them, you need to be careful. These things, there are things in this world that we do not understand, and there are things in this world that hurt. I mean, I had to pretty much die to get this to leave me alone. Since then, I live a pretty quiet life.
Paranormal investigation and sex. Protection, protection, protection. That's what I say. That's what I say. Stephen, earlier we were talking about how the Roman Catholic Church published a 156-page report on the house and your experiences. And I just want to read this little paragraph from Catholic priest Father Paul, who I assume authored the report. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Here's what Father Paul said. The case here is obviously an authentic demonic infestation that went through the stages of diabolical obsession, diabolical oppression, and diabolical possession. All of these demonic angels were invited by several individuals, and one of them was the landlord. I hope and pray you and everyone involved have healed and recovered from this experience. At this time, I would like to say that there are many people who failed you in this case. I hope in some small way this evaluation finally puts some closure on your case and does not fail you. That from a Catholic priest. Pretty amazing, pretty heavy stuff. How did this Catholic report come about?
He heard about the case. I actually have to question why it was done. I mean, for the Catholic Church to do what they did there was kind of groundbreaking. Actually, I can't remember that being done for too many cases, or any case, actually. I mean, the Exorcist cases, that was the report, but that was hidden. I mean, this is something that it was very, very open. And he felt that he needed to do this, and he felt the calling to do it. He had to get a lot of approval to do it. And then give us permission to even be able to talk about it, I thought was pretty. However, I looked at it, and it's like I have to remember where it comes from. I mean, what that mouthful you just said there is pretty frightening, isn't it?
Amazing. And actually being under the pen of a Catholic priest, that to me is very amazing.
Yeah, and they felt, some of the exorcist stuff that I did for the St. Louis exorcism case, I have to wonder if they felt a little bit of remorse, or there was a little bit of guilt that they couldn't take care of it sooner. Because in some ways, I mean, and I think it's funny that they say that they failed us, because we did go to a priest at one point. And that priest actually ended up kind of scared and running out of the house before he did things in the proper way. And I remember going to Lorraine and saying, you said that the priest said, take care of this. Well, this is what happened. He sprinkled some water around him, and he got out. And I said, and he's run into his car. We could hear the pounding upstairs going again. And she said, well, you got the wrong priest, honey. And I was like, well, how many priests do I got to go through? At that point, we were trying the house out on Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, anybody that wanted to come up to the door, to see if we could get some help. So, but I think maybe there's some guilt there that they didn't get to us, and their responsibility in that. And a lot of people let us down. But the thing is we let ourselves down too. We were participating in our hunting too. So no one person can take that blame. In the end, we did escape living our lives in more of a normal way, and it changed the person I am. So I can't look at anybody and point fingers and say you're at fault. And that kind of shocked me. They said that actually, and they did. But I appreciate it. And the thing is the idea of closure, to give us closure. Those are some strong words, and I appreciate that someone saw a need, that there was some need for some closure there.
I think that's pretty amazing that he phrased it that way, and I think actually quite beautiful and quite humane that he phrased it that way for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. The whole thing's like that. I'll have to let you read the thing, the whole thing, because it's very interesting, because it gets into, and Christopher, you too, because you guys do the work, and it gets into the church's view on these type things, and it gets into the church's view on how to handle these type things very specifically, and their views on where we made our mistakes. There was times in the report, and he handled it very humanely, because he would say, Stephen, I need you to take yourself out of this now. He goes, take your personal feelings and put them aside, because what I'm going to say to you right now is going to hurt if you don't. And then he would preface it by that, and then I would know, okay, to brace myself, here comes something that I probably am not going to appreciate, or I'm not going to want to hear. And some of it was very true, though. When I look back at it and some of the things, and I go, well, yeah, I can see where we made the mistake there. But one thing I do disagree with is I do still feel that I needed to stand my ground. So,
our guest is Stephen A. LaChance, author of the book Blessed Are the Wicked, which is a sequel to his first book, The Uninvited. You absolutely, positively, if you have not read these books, go out and get it. Get The Uninvited first, read it through, then get Blessed Are the Wicked. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the kind of books that you open up, you read the first page, and you cannot put the book down. You have to finish the read. That's how good these are. And I don't give that kind of endorsement to many, many books. These books deserve that endorsement. Stephen, please tell our guests where they can, tell our listeners, hey, our listeners are our guests. Please tell our guests, absolutely our guests. Please tell our listeners where they can get your book and also find out more about you and your work.
Well, they can go to my website, which is StephenALaChance.com. That's my name, my full name with my middle initial. The books are available everywhere. Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Amazon, if you're a local library, the Library of Congress. In France, it's funny, they're even offered in Japanese out there. So that's funny when you find an ad for your work in Japanese and you're not quite sure if they're saying good things about you or not. So they're available worldwide. So which is, I'm glad they're doing this well, and I'm glad people are getting something out of it, because Vic, you read it, that, some of the stuff that I had to talk about wasn't easy.
Very painful. And this is personal sharing. This is real personal sharing, because Stephen talks about things that, you would not normally expect someone to share with the general public. That would be very personal. And that's what makes it so compelling and such a great read. And I just want to say that you're listening to Second Sight Radio, psychic medium Christopher George, Victor the Voice Furman, our guest Stephen LaChance on the DTM Wicked Radio Network, and simulcast in video on TeslaWolfMedia.com. Christopher, take it away.
You got it. So, Stephen, your experience in the Union Screaming House was dramatized October of 2006. It House premiered as the first show of the third season on the Discovery Channel, The Haunting. This show went on to be rated one of the most popular episodes of that series Can you please tell us about that experience?
It's reached the last count. It's reached over 26 million people worldwide.
Wow, that's
yeah.
crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, I had no idea going into it. I was very naive when it came. You know, I was a broadcaster too, Victor. So I mean, I got the broadcasting side of things, but television was this new frontier, and I think we did that show too early too. By the way, we were still in the throes of things when we did the show. I mean, we got Helen out of the house in 2005, and here in 2006 they came and asked us if we would do that. We sat down and talked, all of us together, why it would be a good thing to do. We didn't take any money to do it, by the way. We did it for free. I think we got lunch out of the deal. Excuse me, but it became, coming out of it and not being able to find help immediately, and going through some of the things we went through, trying to find people that understood what was happening and stuff. But we felt this need, especially for the need for children, by the way, to go ahead and tell the story, and that's why we all agreed to do it, and we all came forward to do it. And it was a good experience. Yeah, the show itself is kind of a Disneyized version of it. I mean, they obviously had an audience that they had to direct it to, but we were pretty happy that we did it, and I'm glad we did it because it was the catalyst that started bringing people to us to get help.
And for those who are interested, a couple of people in the chat room have asked, the show is available, actually the entire season 3 of The Haunting is available on the DVD from Amazon.com. So it's a Discovery Channel, A Haunting, Season 3, and the show featuring Stephen Story was the lead-off of that series.
And if you guys watch Destination America, they played about 3 times a month too. So,
that's cool.
Well, there's a thing. My youngest son described a thing that was chasing him. I would just give you a real brief. As a clown, and so they kind of took that and ran with it, and you had the clown from it chasing a little boy around this house, which. If you think about a 10-year-old child and they're going through something that's dramatic, how are they going to describe that thing? He was always afraid of clowns, so I think he transposed that onto this thing. But they really kind of overdid it a little bit, But that's entertainment. You can explain.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen, your experiences with the Union Screaming House led you to founding the Missouri Paranormal Research Group in 2004. After all you had been through, what prompted you to do that?
Well, I can tell you the day I did it. That day, we were sitting on the steps of the Screaming House, and I was sitting there with Helen. Helen passed away about a year ago, which was kind of devastating. But we were sitting there, and I looked over at her, and she had tears coming down her face. I said, well, what's wrong? And she goes, we could go out and we could grab somebody off the street and bring them in here, and in 10 minutes they could tell us this place is haunted. She goes, but for the life of me, I can't understand why somebody cannot tell us how to handle it and what to do to help. She goes, because at that point people were coming in, they were grabbing evidence. They said we'd hear from them later. We'd see the evidence on the internet, that sort of thing. Nobody, and then they never talked to us again, or they would say, well, you got a demon, and they'd be gone. We hear that happen, that sort of stuff. And so I looked at her, and I said, I know what you mean. And I said, the only thing I can think of is for us to do this, let's roll up our sleeves and do it for ourselves. And that's really where the group started, was to help ourselves. I mean, so the group started in the fire of a very bad situation, but it was through the knowledge that we started gaining and the studies we started to do and stuff that we met the people that actually were the catalyst to help us. So that's how we met Johnny, and we met Father Paul, and we met Father Ricardo Reese from the Vatican, and all of those people who were Lorraine Warren. I mean, if you look at it, we probably had some of the best help. That if you stand back and from what we do and go, well, if you were going to have anybody help you, these are the people you might want to have help, right? But but it took us to educate ourselves to be able to do that. So that's when the group started. It was a ballsy move, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, I would say so. I know a lot of people who went back through your experience and said, "That's it, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore."
Well, when you're having the same nightmare, you have things crawling in your windows at night. You have shadow people, you have banging on walls, you get attacked in the shower, which Victor, you read the book. It's like at some point you have to take responsibility for yourself. It's just like anything else. Don't look for the world to help you if you're not willing to help yourself.
Absolutely. Amen. And thank you for saying that. Absolutely.
Yeah, well said. Well said. All right, let's want the next question.
No, it's actually yours, Chris. That's why I put the number in for you.
Stephen, I really need to be guided. Just so you know. Funny thing. This year I won. What was it? Host of the year. I don't know how the hell I did it. I mean, maybe a couple people like me. I don't know. I suck. I know it. But Victor, I don't know if you know this yet, Victor, but I've put you in for Host of the Year for this year.
Thankfully, you put me in for Host of the Year and not Ghost of the Year, because that was a potential there.
Yeah, no Ghost of the Year. But you and I'm going to make sure you win this year, just so you know.
And I got to say something on that too, Victor. You're one hell of a broadcaster.
Thank you very much. And coming from you, I take that as a great compliment. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get to the next question here. We have, please share some of the cases that the group investigated.
Oh my gosh!
There's got to be some other ones in there.
Well, the one that stands out, obviously we hit the screening house. Well, one of the ones that stand out, and when you get into some of the other stuff, if we had hours to talk about it, I could explain, how maybe one case was affecting the others. But with Zombie Road, Zombie Road is a road this was an urban legend, and we went to Zombie Road, which is this deserted road that was closed off. That used to be used to take rail from the river. These urban legends of the satanic worship and all this surrounded, and they were supposed to be so active. And I thought, well, this is kind of cool. It's Halloween time. Let's take flashlights and walking down the road and out in the middle of the woods in the middle of the night. That's a cool thing to do, and we'll prove this thing wrong. So I thought it was going to be a walk through Coos 100-acre wood, and it turned into the Blair Witch Project on us pretty quick. And for those of you that have ever seen the film Children of the Brave, Zombie Road is a big portion of that film, because we actually, in 3 o'clock in the morning, when we were filming, we knew these things existed, obviously, before we filmed, but we captured on video the shadow people of Zombie Road coming standing out from behind trees. And the thing about that case that gets me more than anything is you weren't dealing with one or two things. When we talk about the shadows of Zombie Road, you're talking about these were like 15 or more of these shadow-type apparitions. They were only about 4 foot tall, by the way. They weren't very tall, but at one point it got very, very cold, and here they came, and we caught them on film. So I think that case, above all, kind of stands out, because I've never really seen any kind of evidence, and I'm not a big evidence guy. Don't get me wrong. I mean, evidence is what it's for. But as far as evidence goes, I'm kind of proud of that work, because I don't think anything has quite showed shadow figures in that light ever again. And man, I've got to tell you, you're standing out in the middle of this road about 3 miles down into the woods, and these things start coming out from behind the trees, and they're just kind of watching you. And you want to talk about the eerie feeling. There's nowhere to run. I mean, even if you did run, there's nowhere to scream. But what got interesting about it is I started doing research on Zombie Road, and the research was more disturbing than any of the urban legends I could ever imagine. Children drowning, a bus accident, a woman being tied up to a chair, and these young kids pushed her off a train trellis to drown in the water. One gentleman fell off a cliff, and the tree caught him by the chin as he's falling, and it tore his whole face off, and it hung in the tree like a mask. I mean, this stuff tame compared to the reality of it. And there was some kind of more. I hate to use the word devil worship, or what else would you call it? That was going on there, that they would find dead animals and pentagrams, etc. So there you go.
I think this question is sort of, you sort of touched upon it already, but I think it's good to ask and have you restate. Did you find that helping others helped you to heal?
Great question.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of taking. When you live and I want there's a listener to take yourself away from the fact that it's paranormal. Anytime you live through, and we all have crap happen to us in life. I mean, life is that. I mean, it's good and bad. So when those bad things happen, you have to turn them around to something positive to be able to cope with them, to get through them and survive it, right? And I think, the helping of others going through this type of thing was an education. It helped for the closure to happen, because with education comes closure. And it also, just the fact of the child being able to sleep. I'll give you a case that's non-paranormal I work. It started out as a paranormal case. This little girl was claiming she had this being coming in through her window at night, and it was attacking her. She'd wake up with bruises and such, and the parents asked us to help. Well, I had a child psychologist that was a friend of mine that worked with us, and the first thing that he had to do, obviously, was to draw what was attacking her. So she draws this thing, and it was a male figure with a black face, and it was anatomically correct. Well, any child psychologist will instantly tell you sexual abuse. What happened there is, what we found out is, her uncle was putting on a ski mask at night. He was climbing through the window in the middle of the night, and he was the boogeyman that was coming in and sexually assaulting them.
Oh, my God.
The importance of that to me was, and what I learned from that was, it doesn't matter if it's paranormal or not. Had I taken the attitude that this is not paranormal, I'm stepping away from this, or had I gone in and said everything's a demon, everything's paranormal, or here's the skeptic part of what we do and why that's important. Because had I not been the biggest skeptic in there, we could have missed that. And, gosh knows what would have happened to that child. She obviously would have continued going through this. Well, the parents staked out the room one night and caught him coming in through the window, and he was arrested.
Thank God for that. That's just awful. It's really interesting. When we talk to other paranormal investigators and that we've had on the show and so forth, and when we teach, we always emphasize that the greatest tool that you have is your mind. I don't care about K meters and EVP recorders and whatever you have. They're all good, but the most important tool you have is your mind, and being able to discern things when you're dealing with people who are going through these situations, and really learning and listening to what they're saying is so powerful, and being able to help them on that basis is so powerful. And I shared the story, I've shared it on the show before, that one of the teams I'm affiliated with had gotten a call from a couple up in Connecticut who, after 25 years of marriage, decided to build their dream home together. And in the process of building the home, in a very affluent, by the way, a very affluent neighborhood, a lot of money involved here, they started having all kinds of mishaps. They would have contractors quit on them, and other contractors have to redo what the former contractors did. And this went on, and somehow or another, they were led to believe that what they were experiencing was paranormal, was based in the paranormal. So they called in a local, quote-unquote, paranormal investigation team, what I refer to as the shits and giggles team. And they came in, and they said, well, we think you have something negative here. You need to have a psychic come in. And they brought in a so-called, quote-unquote, psychic. And that quote-unquote psychic went through the house for 15 minutes, came back, charged them $900, and told them that they had built the home on land that had belonged to a Native American chief. He was resentful of the fact that they built a home, and it was his intention to kill them. And then she walked out the door.
Unbelievable. I mean, every time I hear that story, it annoys me.
So in any event, I went up there and sitting with this couple as other people were taking measurements, using the meters and so on and so forth. I began to ascertain that there was more there than met the eye, that what was really happening was that there was an issue with the couple, and I started asking them questions. And it turned out that the wife was a building supervisor, a construction supervisor. And rather than hire an owner's representative to deal with the contractors, she took on the responsibility herself. Being a perfectionist, being used to yelling at people on construction sites, she did the same thing to the people that she had hired to build her home, that she and her husband had hired to build their home. And these people resented it, and they would walk off the job. They said, we're not going to take this anymore. And what happened was the more money they had to throw into it, the more difficult it was. And it was starting to have a direct effect on their relationship. Rather than say that this is what was happening, as I said earlier today in the show, people have a tendency, the idea was to go out and hire a builder's representative, not to be involved, and let other people build the house while they live their lives. And that worked out successfully for them. So if you're a paranormal investigator or wannabe paranormal investigator, a member of the Shits and Giggles paranormal team, listen to what I just said. These were real people with real problems in a real home. And it's not about finding a ghost and finding a demon. It's about finding the truth and helping the family. And if you can't do that, get out of the business. You shouldn't be in it.
This is something that we talk about all the time, Stephen, and it's a huge pet peeve with Victor and I, because when we do investigations, we constantly follow up. I mean, we become very good friends with them, as a matter of fact, and have conversations afterwards and counsel them.
Sure.
And it's important because, you know, they're looking for answers, and they already believe they have something in their home. They don't need people to go in there and tell them, yeah, it's there, okay, goodbye. You know, what do you do? You know, what do you do next? And it's just so important to be there for these people. Otherwise, you're not a real investigator as far as I'm concerned.
And you're absolutely right. I mean, your brain is your most. I wrote a whole book called "Crazy" about that, Victor, because I was out speaking, and I met this guy. You know, and I hate. You know what I hate? I hope he never hears me talk about it. But, you know, he comes up to me, and, you know, he's a nice guy, and he's talking to me, and he says, I'm a part of a group, and I'm like, great. And I said, well, what do you do with your group? And he goes, well, I'm the EMF guy. Huh? I'm the EMF guy. I'm like, well, what does the EMF guy do? And his job was to take EMF readings. That's all he did. So, you know, what hit me about it, what disturbed me, it was like, and I always use it as an example, I would hate to be the EMF guy because the whole world is passing by you and you're missing everything. You're missing the obvious even because you got your head stuck into the EMF meter and you're not paying attention to everybody else and everything else. So you will miss that situation like you just talked about or I just talked about. Because you're too caught up, and when you're not getting the kind of readings that you think you should be getting, you're going to pack up and go and leave the people without ever helping them. So that became a pet peeve right away. Was, you know, why do we have people out there like the MF guy that are not using their brains, or not looking into, you know, what is actually going on. They're not looking at the histories. They're not putting one and two together, or not having conversations about what is going on there, or what possibly could it be, or jumping to conclusions, or not jumping to conclusions, just walking away and leaving people alone. It became very clear to me that we have a certain amount, and trust me, you know, there's a lot more good out there than there's bad, folks, but unfortunately the bad can do a lot of damage, and I think that's why the focus on education needs to be very, very strong. And you guys are doing such a great job because you guys are talking about this on a continual basis, and that is what we need. That is what we need, because until we start talking about it continually, make it more aware and make it more of our culture that this is what we do and how we do it, we're going to have little girls falling through the cracks and families getting divorced.
Absolutely.
Well said once again. All right, so, Stephen, your new book, Once Around the Wicked, is a sequel to your first book, The Uninvited. Please tell our listeners a little bit about the book.
Yeah, it's the book is different. It starts out, in 2005, but exactly where The Uninvited left off. However, it became clear, because I wrote in The Uninvited, I wrote it in 2007, and it became clear through time that there was more to tell. There was more there, and people were asking for more about it, and tell us this. And I had a psychic from Louisiana, Shreveport, Louisiana. She was 80-year-old Southern woman, and she wasn't one of the. Nobody knew she was psychic, by the way. She didn't advertise it, but she sat down with me one time and she looked at me and she said, "You need to write another book." And I said, "Well, another book? What do you mean to write?" And I read, she said, "You need to write this book. You need to write the continual. You need to tell the whole story for yourself as much as anything else." And I fought her on it at first because I was like, "No, I don't want to do this. I don't want to go back there." And it was painful. And the stuff that I knew I would have to talk about, I wasn't really willing to talk about at that point either. And so finally I started to write it, and I would stop writing it, Victor. You get a kick out of this. And when I would stop writing it, she would call me up and go, "How's that book coming, honey?" And almost like the day I would stop writing on it, and I would say to her, I'm like, "Man, this is too tough. I can't, I'm in a part I don't want to talk about." And she'd go, "Life is hard, honey. Get back to writing that book."
There you go.
And so 2 weeks after the book was completed, she passed away. But, so the book's dedicated to her. If you see the book, she's the first dedication.
Yes.
But, she was right, though. There was a lot to tell. And what I think is interesting about Blessed is people don't understand that once the door closes to a haunting, the haunting is not necessarily over. There's the aftermath that continues. And then if you decide to go public and what that can mean, and getting the history, and that came into play, and running a paranormal team, you have the haunting going on at the same time, and what that effect was. And I mean, it's very involved. And people look at the title of the book and they always go, "Well, that's such a scary title," but it's not. And I'm not going to tell you why, because I want you to read the book, and I don't want to give it away to you. But the title has more to do with forgiveness than anything.
Absolutely. Stephen, what advice would you give to those who think their homes may be haunted?
Find somebody that knows what they're doing first. Don't just accept. If somebody says something to you that seems crazy, it's crazy. You'll know if you get good help. You try to find somebody that's lived through and experienced a lot of times that help. I would tell them that. And most importantly, though, is, to help yourself is the easiest way of doing things. You can do that with things like don't look for the paranormal, look for other reasons. And, look at your own life and see if you're living the life of a positive person. If you're bringing negative down on yourself all the time, the negative does tend to follow, doesn't it? Those type of things I would tell them, and then if you need to get help, the first sign of good help is somebody that will step aside and let somebody come in that has more knowledge or is better equipped to handle the case. I think a lot of times we get teams that go out there, and their intents are good. Their intents are good, and they're meaning to help and everything, but the ego kind of gets in the way, and they don't and they need to step by, and maybe it's clergy that need to bring in. And it's not always the Catholic Church. By the way, I'm not Catholic, you guys. I had a case once where it was a possession type case, and the young girl had been raped by a Catholic priest when she was younger, so we had to go more of an evangelical route. So but to be able to realize that was needed and to step aside, a lot of times people let their egos get in the way, and they just don't want to turn it over. With help, when your ego becomes more important than the help that you need to give, is when you need to get out. So that's what I think.
All right. Well, Vic, we only have about 3 minutes left. You want to?
Stephen, you're an amazing guest. This was a wonderful show. We so resonate with your message and what you share. And I look forward to actually, Chris and I, I'm sure, look forward to meeting you one of these days. We'd love to get together with you and meet you if you're ever in the New York area or if either of us ever get out to the Missouri area. And I just want to mention again that Stephen's new book is called Blessed Are the Wicked, the terrifying sequel to The Uninvited. If you haven't read The Uninvited, go out and get it and read it. And then read Blessed Are the Wicked. If you do it on a weekend, you'll finish The Uninvited on Saturday and Blessed Are the Wicked on Sunday. These are must-read. Pick them up and don't put them down books. That's how good they are. And we're grateful for Stephen LaCounce for sharing his personal experience, some very, very personal and intimate experiences, and bringing it to light. Because you know what? There's a message in there for each and every one of us. Stephen.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for being our guest, Stephen. You're fantastic.
Well, anytime, guys, just let me know. I'll be here.
You have a great night.
All right, you too. Take care, my friend. Take care.
Okay. Well, Victor, we only have 2 minutes left, or a minute left, and, we had a little technical difficulty on the Tesla side, so they didn't hear about the investigation Second Sight will be doing in April. For those of you who didn't hear, sometime in April, Second Sight will be hosting an investigation at the Shanley Hotel in Mackinac, New York. There will probably be about 15 openings if you want to, be part of this investigation, which will be aired on Tesla and UTM. Get in contact with myself and Victor, and we'll make that happen. Hey, Vic, why don't you take us out?
We're grateful to Stephen LaCounce for joining us tonight, sharing his book, Blessed Are the Wicked, and his experiences. He's psychic comedian Christopher George. I'm Victor the Voice Furman. Thank you all for joining us tonight on Second Sight Radio. We'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody. All right. Well, there was some technical difficulty on Tesla. But,
because that would have been a great show to have on video.
Yeah, it was good. But you know what? We'll get that taken care of, and, what are you going to do? But we got the whole first hour in, and I think the last 20 minutes of the second hour.
Okay, great.
And Danny told me that we had the server, so, it was all good.
Well, you know what? We didn't announce our guest for next week, but that's okay. That's all right. Not a problem.
No biggie. All right, Victor.
All right, so we'll do the show tomorrow night, and then we'll do the recording for next week over the weekend.
Yes, I'll be home all weekend.
All righty. Take care, my friend, my brother. Good night.
Have a great night, and feel well, please.
You too.
I'm all right. You just take it easy.
Listen, no more arrhythmia and no more pus.
That's it. No arrhythmia and no pus. I'm with you.
There you go. Good night.
Have a good one.